Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20. This is the 2016 Holiday Mini Series. Listen as we share tips to help you finish out 2016 and plan for a successful 2017. Welcome to another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono. I'm working on a special series as we start to get down into the end of 2016 and start working on our business goals for 2017. So I've invited a couple guests to work on this series with me, and I really appreciate their time. I'd love to get right into it and introduce to you Jeremy Paris. Jeremy was introduced to me by another contact of ours, which happens in the military community. And he's a 10-year Army veteran, and he's also a podcaster. So good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Lindsey. I'm very excited to be on this podcast.
Thank you, and thank you for being on it. So tell everybody about yourself.
Okay, I was born in Buffalo, New York. Go Bills. And I was in the Army. I went right in the Army after high school. I was 17 years old. Had to have my mom sign for me and everything.
Oh, you're a baby.
Yep. And it's funny because I had no idea until like a week before that I was going to go in. I just last minute decided and jumped into it. And I went in as personnel, thanks to my recruiter who, waved a $1,500 bonus in front of me, which to somebody who's poor and 17 years old is a ton of money.
Yeah, jackpot.
Yep. So I jumped all over that and became personnel, which I spent the next 10 years trying to get out of. And and here's the thing. I was really good at personnel. I was really good at it. I was great with networking with people, with communicating. I could, walk up to colonels and generals and go over presentations with them without, being extremely scared like a lot of my peers were. Oh, I can't talk to him. He's the colonel. Mm-hmm. And so I was good at it, but I just didn't like that feeling of being in a cubicle most of the day when I'm a soldier. I'm in the Army. I should be doing soldier stuff. And here I am sitting at a desk. Yeah. So I decided to get out and ended up becoming a government contractor and going into another cubicle. And, and I did that for 16 more years. I was supporting the Department of Defense. I was a senior systems engineer doing computer type work. And it was good, but it still wasn't my passion. And back in 2010, I was starting to, as a hobby, get into acting. And I have a handful of IMDb credits that, for smaller films, but they were a ton of fun. And at the time, there was this nonprofit veteran artist program that had just started up, and they were working on a program called Vets on Sets, where they were going to try to get more veterans in front of and behind the camera. And I thought, this is great. I could really connect with these people. So I went in and I talked to BR, the director, and within a week, I was on the staff. I was building their website for them because I had been building websites since GeoCities. And I just loved what they were doing. And we never really got Vets on Sets off the ground. Instead, we went in a bunch of different directions, doing some amazing, amazing things. And one of the things that we did, we were in DC at the National Geographic Channel's Red Carpet event for American war generals. Mm-hmm. And this was really cool. We were one of the sponsors. And so I was walking around and I was shaking hands all night long and meeting all of these people who were working for all of these other veteran nonprofits. And I'm meeting the Mission Continues and Team Red, White, and Blue and all of these different people. And I went back to BR and I said, this is incredible. I had no idea there was this many veteran nonprofits out there. Mm-hmm. And he kind of chuckled and he said, Jeremy, there's tens of thousands of them. Mm-hmm. And that was my aha moment that if I could be in the Army for 10 years and then I could be surrounded by military supporting the DoD for another 15 years, 25 years surrounded by military, and I only knew about a handful of these veteran nonprofits. Well, probably most other veterans getting out don't know about them either. So that's when I came up with the idea to start the Veteran Resource Podcast.
And the Veteran Resource Podcast is still live. You're 100, how many, 50, what episode, how many episodes are you at now? I have 58.
Actually, I'm up to 62 now. Today was 62.
62. Okay. Oh, you've already recorded one today. Awesome. So in your work with the Veteran Resource Podcast, and those that are listening, you definitely want to check out that podcast. It is a great podcast. I've listened to it and I enjoy listening to Jeremy and his interviews. Jeremy, what kind of tips or guidance can you give us as we're, like I said, closing out 2016, working into 2017?
Well, I would say I got a couple things here. One is networking. Networking is huge. And there's a lot of people. I mean, I'm an extrovert. It's pretty easy for me. As an introvert, though, you can still do it. It's just a little bit more difficult. And I would highly recommend that you do it, but you do it right. There's so many people that are just trying to cast this huge net out there, and they're trying to gather in just anybody that will listen to them. But you want to figure out who your target is first. Who is it that you really want to talk to and engage with and communicate with? And then don't just go and try to collect all of those people. You want to actually provide value to them. You want to be a person of value. And just by giving them that value and helping them out with whatever it is that they might need, they're going to come to you for whatever it is you have to offer because they already know, like, and trust you.
Perfect.
So that's huge. And the other thing I would say is processes. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but aside from the Veteran Resource Podcast, I also started Podcast Playground with my co-founder, Kate. And this is the first network, podcast network made just for kids. And we have all kid hosts for the shows. And between my podcast and Wacky News and Toothy Trivia, and we've got some more that we're working on growing, there's no way that we could accomplish doing all of the work behind all of those things if we didn't have the processes in place to be able to automate some things, be able to outsource some things, and be able to batch all of the rest of the things so we can record a handful of episodes all at one time and do all of the editing all at one time and just knock it all out. And I think it was, have you ever read the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber?
No.
It is an incredible book. I highly recommend it. He basically goes over the difference between working in your business and working on your business.
It happens to me. I get stuck, in it and the day to day, and then I'm not working actually on it. So yeah, I can completely relate to how that feels. I will definitely check out that book, and thank you for the recommendation.
Absolutely.
I think you had some. I know you have some experience in nonprofits, and there are listeners who are active duty, military spouse, or veterans that are in the nonprofit realm. And the conversations that we have with them as far as marketing and advertising go, it looks a little different for them. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's in the nonprofit sector?
Well, I've talked with, 60, 70 different nonprofits now and got to interview them specifically about what it is that they're providing. And what I noticed is that they're all providing something different, but the ones that are really doing good have niched down to something very, very specific. Like Warrior Hike, they just changed their name, I think, to Warrior Expeditions. They started out and they were just taking people hiking. They were taking military veterans hiking the Appalachian Trail for 6 months or the Pacific Crest Trail and helping them to walk off the war. But they realized there's all of these other things that veterans need, but we're just going to focus on this one thing and be super good at it, be the experts at that one thing. And then we can connect and collaborate with other nonprofit organizations to help provide the other things that the veterans need. And I think that if you're a nonprofit out there, I think figuring out what it is that you really are good at and what it is you really want to do and provide for your audience. I think that you should get really focused on that and then look for ways to collaborate with other organizations that might be able to provide something that helps out, that goes along with what it is you're doing.
I'm going to totally whack this out of proportion, I think, but somebody the other day I was reading something said, don't reinvent the wheel. So in that way, if there's a nonprofit that's also doing something that's very similar to what you're doing, reaching out to them and collaborating and even entertaining the idea of coming together, partnering and, blending together. Why compete when you can develop your strengths? If you're both passionate about the same things. So I love that. Yeah. I love that, focusing on your niche also, even if you're not a not-for-profit. So, of course that goes from when we ask people, okay, what's your target audience? Adults 18 plus, and you're like, oh no, let's get a little down further. So I love that too. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to share as we start to walk into 2017 with our listeners?
Well, I would invite people to go and check out the podcast, veteranresourcepodcast.com. And today's episode, I interviewed Michael Raines, who is still in the military, and he's looking at starting up his own mastermind groups. And I thought that was really interesting that he's doing not outside of the military, but he's actually doing this to become a better NCO, a better leader in the military.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'd love to share that episode. I'll share that out when this gets released so that listeners know where to go and find that. So Jeremy Paris with Veteran Resource Podcast, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you?
You can find me at veteranresourcepodcast.com. I also started a community, which is a closed Facebook group, veteranresourcepodcast.com/community will take you there. And you can find me at ParisJ13 on Twitter as well.
And then LinkedIn too.
Absolutely. LinkedIn too.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. Jeremy shared a lot of really great tips for us as we start to plan our businesses in 2017. One of them, which I'm a big advocate for, is networking and the power of that and making sure that you're doing it with intention and not just going and handing out all your business cards at something. And then processes. So finding the processes that can help you streamline some flow. So if that's automating, outsourcing, or batching things together. I only record on certain days because our advertising agency has things like media buys to place. So I completely get that. And then if in the nonprofit sector, of course, if you're in that realm, finding that niche, what is it that you're really good at? Are there potential partnerships out there that you can take advantage of? Jeremy, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for your service. And I can relate to your going from an institutionalized to now creative realm. It sounds like you've really found, the happiest place for you. And for our listeners, please do go connect with Jeremy Paris. Check out Veteran Resource Podcast.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.